So you're here with the consultant. This is my alter ego.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And to introduce you to our lovely viewers, how I think of you is the legend of New York City. You are
A true native New Yorker.
a founder of the gallery. You were a resident DJ at Studio 50 for the center of nightlife at a time when nightlife was, many people would say, at its best in the city. And you've been here for all of these decades, seeing everything change. And yeah, you're just an incredible person. And I love you very much. If I didn't give that intro, how would you describe yourself?
Consummate native New Yorker.
Yeah.
I am truly, everything about New York I love. Every time I look at something in New York, I feel energized by the art of it, by the exquisite sculptures all around us, in the skyline, on the subway, in the graffiti. Everything to me is art in this city.
And do you find that it is also like actively inspiring you, or like how has inspiration changed when you've been kind of living in the city and seeing it evolve in so many different ways?
When I was a kid, I just never realized how that was all working. You know, I was just lost. I didn't know that, like, you access talent by being open to everything around you, and you rechannel that into your art. I didn't understand that. I thought it was coming from this mysterious place. I remember telling my therapist in 1973, when the gallery was just starting, 1 year old, and it was exploding. It was amazing. And I would tell this therapist, I would go to work and then magic would happen. And that's what I called it. And she said to me, well, what is that magic? And I couldn't name it. I couldn't describe it. And now I know it's the essence of everything. It's the love is the message thing I always talk about. It's what people call God a lot. It's that thing that connects us all that we don't really see or hear. But if you just relax a minute and meditate, you could feel it.
But how do you think that people who, like, I feel like a lot of people have trouble accessing it, and they kind of live in these sort of, especially in New York, there's so many lonely people who don't have access to that feeling ever. And so what advice would you give them?
Meditate.
Really?
It's really simple. You have to learn to clear the chatter in your mind. Otherwise, you'll never access it. If you're totally caught up with that shit in your head, you're never going to access that inspiration, because that's something you have to let in. And you can't let something in that is blocked by all this chatter.
So you were like going to Broadway shows, you were really engaging with New York in that way. What was the transition to like music and then eventually DJing? Like, how did that happen, especially also at such a young age? And
I was 15 and I started going down the Village to pick up guys. I was going out with a woman, but I told her I was gay, but she was still interested in me. And so we started sleeping together, and I said, look, I'm gay. She said, I don't care. Go and do something tonight. Just come home to me. And I never ended up doing anything, but I would go down the Village and I would hang out on Christopher Street. And back then it was a big party on the street. Kids, young people who couldn't get into the bar would hang outside the Stonewall, listen and dance to the music. And I heard some records there, and I was always, from a very young age, I started listening to all those Broadway shows. And then with the money from my paper route, I bought a really good stereo, because I thought, I want to hear the sonics of the sound. I want to hear the instruments. I want to hear the totality of the composition. I want to hear the arrangement. So I started listening to orchestrations like Mantovani and crazy shit like that, just to hear what it sounded like sonically. And of course I was into the Beatles, and Janis was like an idol of
Well,
mine.
was there anyone in your life who was really turning you on to
My brother.
music? Okay.
Yeah, my brother.
And didn't you open the gallery
with my brother?
your
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was really strange because he lived in the basement. He had like an apartment in our basement, and he always let me down. You know, I went down there at will, but he didn't really turn me on to music. What happened was I would go through his record collection, and I would just play the records. I went to a party at my brother's house, and everyone wanted to, oh, we want to dance, oh, we want to dance. And they're putting on this shit music. That
okay, but you have to, what was the shit music back then?
Okay.
What was considered shit music?
No, things you can't dance to, like Led Zeppelin, a ballad by Led Zeppelin, like Stairway to Heaven or something like that. And I was like, let me play some records. So I'm playing some records and everyone's getting up and dancing. And my brother's girlfriend, Dale Zotos. Hi, Dale, if you're out there somewhere. I really would like to talk to you. She said, you like this kind of music? I said, I love it. And she said, do you go out there? I said, I can't get into these bars. I'm still 15.
Oh, my God, you're such a child at this point.
She said, I know a place that'll let you in. It's called The Loft.
Oh.
And I'm a member, and I'll take you Saturday night. And when I went to The Loft, I think the third time I was there, I said, I have to be a DJ. It was a life-changing moment for me because I realized he wasn't playing records, he was creating atmosphere.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted much more than playing records. I wanted to create that atmosphere. And that's why the gallery, all these things, everything happens for a reason, you know? I think that's why the gallery fell in my lap.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, so how did you then ultimately?
Well, I got a job playing records.
Yeah.
By complaining about the DJ at this club called the Round Table.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I just went and complained and complained and complained. And then she said, my Nicky's a DJ. He'll play much better than this guy. And he said, okay, I've been dying to fire this fucker. So I played there for a year, and they had a really they had a drag show there. It was called the LaFleur Sisters. And it was very popular. They were very popular. And one night I played the wrong record or didn't mix it in just right. And she came up to me and she was giving me a hard time and everything. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have a headphone. You don't know what it's like to cue without a headphone. And she said, well, the other DJ did it. I don't know what he did. Put scotch tape on the record where the part was. I don't know what he did, but whatever he did it, and I couldn't without a headphone, or I really didn't want to. But anyway, I tried. I did.
Yeah.
And the fact that I answered her back and gave her a hard time, she had me fired.
Yeah.
Robin and I, that was my girlfriend at the time, sat down and we put together a business plan. And it was astonishing to us how little we needed to open a club. 10 grand. That's what we opened the first gallery.
Which was in Chelsea, right? And then you moved
to
22nd
Street.
And then you moved to Mercer Street.
136 West 22nd Street. We went to the only person we knew who was older than us and had a little bit of money, my brother, who was 10 years older than me. So at the time, I'm 16.
Oh, my God.
He's 26. And we went to him and he said, I just settled a lawsuit for exactly this amount.
Amazing.
And I'm willing to invest it. And he did, and we did it. And within a year, the gallery opened. It opened just before I turned 18.
Wow. And how did you find the space?
At the time, if you walk down Chelsea, there was a placard hanging outside every other door. Loft available, loft space available, loft space available. $400 for 3,500 feet.
Oh, my God.
3,600 square feet, $400 it was.
Amazing.
The rent. We got broken into 3 times, but once we got an alarm system, we were fine.
Like, when did your love life kind of pick up? And so you opened
It
the
happened at the
gallery.
round table. I met the love of my life there. His name was Robert De Silva, and he was the light man at the gallery and Studio 54.
Oh my God. Okay, take a sip because we're jumping into that.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you meet?
He came on a Wednesday night. So you know what was there on a Wednesday night? Me and the 5 people at the bar. And I'm talking about a place that fit 1,500 people. It was not crowded. So he's down there, and I'm up on the balcony, and he's looking up at me, and I go, and he comes up through the back stair, and we met. And
Did you know right away that there was some sort of connection?
No.
Okay.
But I gave him my number, and we started hanging out together. And he started working the lights at the gallery immediately. And he started doing things that, I mean, no one else really would do. He put in a foot pedal for some lighting because, you know, all your hands are busy sometimes. Because everything was manual back then. So it wasn't, you didn't have a lot of things you could do without getting some other limbs working on the situation. So he put a foot pedal on the lighting, and it was really unique. Plus, we designed the lighting panel together, and then he would say, "Oh, let's put in a bubble machine. Let's put in a fog machine. Let's put in this." And so I was the first person to install all these things in a club, and because they were all meant for theater and stuff like that. And that's where we would buy all our stuff, at a theater place on 49th Street, all our lighting and everything. And at the beginning,
because you see the productions, you see footage from those, you know, events back in the day, and it was a full-on production. I mean, even looking at the lights in Studio 54, it's amazing.
Oh, Studio 54 was another level. What Steve did after he did the Enchanted Gardens, which is how I first met him.
And so can you tell people what the Enchanted Gardens
The Enchanted Gardens was Steve Rebell and Ian Schrager's first club, which was the Douglaston Golf Course is main gathering house. Mm-hmm. And you could see the city from, this is exit 31 on the LIE, so it's far out, but you could see the city from the dining area.
Wow.
And he opened, because he owned Steak Loft, so he opened a club / disco. And he hired me for one night, because I didn't want to work anymore. I was working the gallery Friday and Saturday. I wanted to work like an off night. And I worked Tuesday nights there. It was the busiest night of the week in the club.
Yeah.
It was also free to get in that night. I don't tell people. But anyway, so then he realized that the only way to really first of all, he became a gallery devotee.
I'm sure.
And he sat under my DJ booth and watched the lighting. No,
I'm sure he was completely in awe, and I'm sure he watched you and he said, "I need this guy on my team."
It was crazy.
Well, so when you were DJing at Studio 54, was this love of your life gentleman still in the picture? And we have to go back to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys met that night where it was empty.
Yeah, this is you're talking
years
about 1977.
back. Yeah.
And we met in 1971, 72.
Yes. And so then when did things become serious? When did you feel serious for him?
We became serious in 73.
Yeah.
I mean, we were hot and heavy through 73, 74, 75. And then he was just, I'm horny all the time, but he was ridiculous. And
what?
It wasn't, I would satisfy him, but he'd still go out and come home smelling like lubricant. And it was just, I don't know. You know, gay men can be very promiscuous,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not like that. I'm just not like that. I don't know. It's just something inside me.
And so you only wanted to be with him, is that right?
You know what? Just don't come home smelling like intensive care lubricant. I don't want to. I just don't want it.
Yeah.
You know? Especially if I'm
Well,
having
so what would you say if you would you confront him, and what would he
Yeah.
say?
And he
Yeah.
said, oh, Kenny.
Well, and were you living together at the time?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he'd say, Kenny was horny, so I let him fuck me.
That's 73, 74, 75. You're still with him.
76, I'm still with him. Yeah. And only 77, when studio opened, we started partying because he started having access to a lot more men, and he just wanted to go out with that one and that one and that one. And it was horrible for me because I really felt like he was so talented and just we was just such a dynamic duo when we played together.
Yeah.
And it just was, I was heartbroken. And I think why I started doing heroin, that was part of it, was because of that lack of someone there who I really loved.
Yeah.
And I was trying to fill that with drugs or something.
Did you cross paths again? Like,
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And what was
As a
that
matter
like?
of fact, I saw him in the 80s, and I had gotten clean, and he was still using.
Yeah.
And he had
And was he using heroin as well? Yeah.
And I really didn't use heroin with him. I mean, he left, and I started using, and he started using on his own somewhere, I think. I don't know. I don't really remember how it went down, but I do know that I got clean, and I went somewhere to get clean, and he ended up at the same place I was at.
Okay, but just years later.
Right.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and we went home together, and we had sex, and then he never came back, and that was it.
Wow.
That was the last time I saw him, and then he died in
Wow.
90-something. He understood that the music and the lighting had to really enhance each other in order for the night to be fully exciting.
Well, and also that seems like such a dream duo because you two are connected in this like soulful romantic way, and then you're also putting on this complete and total amazing production for people to give them an experience. So you're like this young kid, you've started a club.
I didn't start taking heroin until I was 21, so
Still a young kid at 21.
Yeah. So, but
like
I'm
what?
playing records at the gallery, 17, 18, 19,
Yeah,
20,
you're so young.
21. I'm playing 5 years
Yeah.
before I ever
And
touch heroin.
were you like kind of witnessing kind of drugs all around you because
No, I was using drugs, but I just, something I said at a very young age, I will never put a needle in my arm.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And then my best friend did it, and he called me up, and he said, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was.
Yeah.
But that experience really, was supposed to happen. I had to go away from music for a while
Yeah.
to come back and really make a difference.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't present enough after I met heroin. I wasn't able to stay with the emotional content of the night. It got overwhelming for me, and I would want to get high and run from it. Now I could just go with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, I'm thinking of a record, and he plays it. That's because I'm tuning into what I could tune into the room so easily now.
Well, there's a level of presence that's that's maybe not there when you're using.
Right. Can't do it.
Yeah. Well, so what was like the aha moment when you knew you needed to get clean? Was there one? Or was
My
it like a
friend
progression?
David died of HIV, and I just knew I had to change something. I just knew that it wasn't working.
Like, was it quite different to be meeting people romantically at once you got sober? And like, what did that look like for you? Because also, wasn't this in the 80s? This was sort of in the height of
it was before
AIDS
everybody got clean. Everyone else got clean. I'm
Yeah.
always ahead of my time.
You said this earlier too, that you feel like everything happens for a reason.
I
And
think you really can change anything you want to change. I think you can maneuver fate if you want to. But if something happens to you, it's kind of interesting to look at it and try to understand why it's happening
yeah,
and how you can benefit from it and move on from it if you want to.
totally. And react to it in like a proactive way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're in an art, any kind of art, learn your art. I mean, really, spend hours and hours and hours and hours. I would spend nightly torturing my partners with playing records in my and I didn't have a mixer because back then mixers weren't really accessible, so I had 2 different stereos, and I would play one record and then switch to another stereo, but do a mix, like try to blend it and stuff like that. Blending was not happening yet. I basically was at the forefront of that. And so beat matching was not happening yet. So I would spend hours and hours trying to figure this out and torturing them, and then just sonically get into the art. So if you're learning guitar, if you're learning saxophone, if you're learning drums, first of all, really learn your art.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, just take a year off and do nothing but practice every day for 10 hours.
If you were to summarize, what are the differences between the parties back in the day and like nightlife now? And I know it's a very depressing depressing reality.
Then you know what came to my mind? Heart. What's the difference is heart. That had heart and this doesn't.
Really?
This has dough and no heart. It's become corporate. And
Right.
and so it's everything is the bottom line, and it's ruining our whole society. This greed thing is ruining our society. When you walked in the gallery, you knew that we cared.
Yeah. Well, because there was a sense of community, and it was
Absolutely.
there were regulars, and
And
yeah.
it was built out of what happened in the 60s and civil rights and ending the war.
Totally.
And all that stuff was right in the heart of our lives. And we showed people that we cared about them. By the way, the movie is
Yes. Intro the movie.
it's directed by Luke Poling, and it's if you watch the trailer, you see it starts with Stonewall.
Yeah.
It's my experience, basically. Because we have all the footage from the gallery, it makes it really an immersive experience where you actually are in the club for most of the movie.
Yeah.
And that is something really that all these documentaries have been missing.
Well,
the
totally,
footage.
because they missed
'Cause-
the access to the footage.
Right.
Right?
There's
Yeah.
no access. There
Yeah.
isn't any. Because back then there were no video cameras. So
Right.
this was all shot on film.
How would you define love?
Wow. define love, I think it's more than an emotion. I think it has a kind of presence to it. It's it's a spiritual presence. It's I would define love as a spiritual, the ability to spiritually connect with the world. That's how I would define love.